Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking a bit of a detour. We are walking right off the map.
Leaving the safe path entirely.
Exactly. We're leaving the path that most fantasy readers are comfortable with, and we're stepping right into the old forest.
Which is dangerous territory.
Very dangerous. Because today we are tackling the single most, I'd say the most baffling, controversial, and polarizing figure in the entire legendarium of J.R.R. Tolkien.
Oh, without a doubt. It is the ultimate litmus test for Tolkien fans.
It really is.
There are basically two types of people in the world. You have those who completely embrace the singing, the yellow boots, and the nonsense verse. And then you have those who frantically flip the pages, hoping to just get back to the ring wraiths.
Right, the skippers. We are, of course, talking about Tom Bombadil.
The Enigma himself. The oldest and fatherless.
And I have to be honest with you right up front, and I think this is going to align with a lot of your experiences listening to this. When I first read The Fellowship of the Ring, I was, a teenager.
Yeah.
And I was there for the epic stakes. I wanted the Black Riders. I wanted the Shards of Narsil. I wanted the impending doom.
You wanted a war story.
I was absolutely ready for a war story. And then right when the tension is really ramping up, right when they leave the Shire and things are actually getting scary, the plot just stops.
It just hits a brick wall. A brick wall made of absolute whimsy.
Yes. Suddenly, we are eating cream and honeycomb, and we're listening to a guy saying, "Hey, doll, Mary doll," for what genuinely feels like 40 pages.
It is a lot of pages.
I remember being 15 and thinking, did I pick up the wrong book? Like, is this a nursery rhyme? What is actually happening here?
It feels like a glitch.
Total glitch in the matrix of the story.
And that reaction is almost universal. The source material we're digging into today highlights that specific struggle perfectly. When you are conditioned by modern fantasy or, even by the Peter Jackson movies, you expect a tight, driving narrative.
Cause and effect.
Right.
Tension and release. But Tom Bombadil doesn't just break those rules. He ignores them completely. He feels like he wandered in from a completely different genre.
A different genre and, as we'll find out in a bit, literally a different era of Tolkien's life entirely.
Exactly.
But here is the mission for this deep dive. We want to take that impulse that you might have to skip him, that feeling that he's just this silly filler content, and completely invert it.
Because he's not filler.
Not at all. The research shows that if you actually look past the hey doll, Mary doll, Tom isn't just a weird side quest. He might actually be the linchpin that holds the entire thematic integrity of Middle-earth together.
And on a literal plot level, too, which I think surprises people the most, there's a very strong argument that without Tom Bombadil, the entire quest fails.
Right.
Not just in the Old Forest, but way later. Without Tom, the Witch King of Angmar does not die.
And that is the hook that completely got me. The idea that the guy in the yellow boots is the reason Eowyn survives the Return of the King.
It sounds absurd until you look at the mechanics of it. So lay out the roadmap for us. How are we going to deconstruct this anomaly?
Well, we have a lot of ground to cover. We are going to start with the real-world origin of the character, which is bizarrely domestic and involves a family dispute over a toilet.
Which I still cannot believe is real history.
It is absolutely real, so we'll cover that. Then we'll move to the text itself and analyze the power anomaly. Specifically, why the ring, which corrupts literally everyone else, has zero effect on him.
That part is so crucial.
It tells us something fundamental about how magic works in Middle-earth. After that, we'll break down the hidden mechanics of the barrow blades, which is the plot-critical stuff we just teased.
The swords.
The swords, yes. And finally, we'll look at the philosophical defense Tolkien himself gave. Why did he fight his editors tooth and nail to keep Tom in the book?
Because a modern editor would have cut him in a heartbeat.
Oh, immediately. They'd say, cut the singing guy, he ruins the pacing. But Tolkien refused. And understanding why he refused is the key to understanding the depth of the entire world.
Okay, let's dive right in. Let's start with a basic vibe check. For you listening, maybe you haven't read the books in 20 years, or maybe you only know the movies where Tom is entirely absent. Paint the picture for us. Who is this guy?
So visually, Tom Bombadil is essentially an assault on the senses, especially given the context of what's happening. The hobbits have just barely escaped the Shire. They are being hunted by the Nazgul, who are literal ghosts of terror.
Right, they are terrified out of their minds.
And they enter the Old Forest, which is not just some woods. It is a hostile, malevolent ecosystem. The trees are actively trying to eat them.
Let's set that scene properly because it matters.
Yeah.
The old forest is an active antagonist.
It really is. The trees are watching them. The paths are physically shifting around them to get them lost. It's incredibly claustrophobic. And specifically, they get trapped by Old Man Willow.
A terrifying concept.
Truly, this is a massive tree that sings them into a magically induced sleep and then physically begins to crush Merry and Pippin inside its trunk.
It's a horror scene.
It's the kind of thing that belongs in a dark, grim fairy tale, not the start of a high fantasy epic. The tension is unbearable.
And
then, bounding into the clearing, comes this figure. The text says he is too large and heavy to be a hobbit, but too small and broad to be a man. And he's wearing a bright blue jacket, bright yellow boots, and a battered old hat with a tall blue feather.
which is objectively the least tactical gear you could possibly wear in a dark, dangerous forest. It's like wearing a neon sign.
Precisely. He has no weapons whatsoever. He is singing constantly, and not just humming softly to himself. He is bellowing nonsense verse. Tom Bombadil.
It's shouting it at the trees.
Yes. He speaks in this distinct trochaic meter that creates a bouncing, relentless, rhythmic cadence. And the crazy part is he orders the deadly tree to let the hobbits go. Not with a magic spell, not with a sword, but just with pure authority. He basically tells the tree to behave itself.
And the tree actually listens.
That's the first real clue that he isn't just a clown. He commands the environment. He treats this terrifying monster tree like a naughty puppy. He literally smacks it with a branch and tells it to go to sleep. And it does.
It just releases them.
It releases them. And then he just casually invites the traumatized hobbits back to his house, where he lives with his wife, Goldberry, the river daughter. And for the next 2 chapters, the plot of The Lord of the Rings just completely pauses.
It goes on vacation.
They eat, they drink, they sleep, and Tom tells them stories about the nature of the world.
And this is exactly where the tone clash happens. The source material calls it jarring, and I completely agree. You have the literal fate of the world hanging by a thread. The Dark Lord is gathering his forces, and Tom is basically running a magical bed and breakfast.
It's almost psychedelic in a way. The hobbits have these vivid, strange dreams. They completely lose track of time. It feels like a fever dream or a bizarre detour into fairy.
Right.
And then, after all that, he rescues them again from the Barrow-wights, hands them some ancient swords, points them toward the town of Bree, and just vanishes from the story.
He never leaves his little patch of land.
Never. He is mentioned briefly at the Council of Elrond, but he doesn't attend. He doesn't fight in the War of the Ring. He just exists in his forest.
It's that isolation that makes him so deeply weird to a modern reader. He's like an NPC in a video game who is glitched and stuck in the starting zone, but who is somehow level 99.
That is a fantastic analogy. But to understand why he is glitched like that, we have to look at the source code. And that takes us way back to the 1930s. Because Tom Bombadil was not created for The Lord of the Rings.
It was an import.
He was a complete import. This brings us to the origin story section. According to Tolkien's biography, the character of Tom Bombadil was actually based on a Dutch doll.
A literal physical toy.
A toy belonging to Tolkien's second son, Michael. It was a splendid little doll with a blue jacket and yellow boots. But the drama starts with Tolkien's eldest son, John.
John was not a fan of the doll, from what the source says.
John hated the doll. We don't know exactly why. Maybe it was just sibling rivalry, or maybe the doll looked creepy, but the source notes that one day, John actually stuffed the doll down the lavatory.
He tried to flush the protagonist of the old forest down the toilet.
The lavatory incident, yes. The doll was rescued, thankfully. But that incident, that little piece of household drama, seemed to spark something in Tolkien's imagination. He ended up writing a poem called The Adventures of Tom Bombadil, which was published in the Oxford Magazine in 1934.
1934. That is years and years before The Lord of the Rings was even a concept.
Years before, and if you read that original poem, all the elements are already there. Tom, Goldberry, Old Man Willow, and the Barrow-wight. But here is the massive difference in the 1934 poem. The tone is pure whimsy.
It's just a lighthearted kid's poem.
Exactly. It's a children's nursery rhyme. The Barrow-wight isn't a terrifying undead spirit in service of Angmar. He's just a spooky, grumpy obstacle. Actually, in the very original drafts, it was just a badger family. The context was incredibly light.
So when Tolkien finally sat down to start writing the sequel to The Hobbit,
You have to remember his mindset. When he started drafting Chapter 1 of The Lord of the Rings in the late 30s, he thought he was writing another children's book. He had no idea it was going to turn into this massive, dark, epic saga.
He just needed a new adventure for the road.
Right. He needed an obstacle for the hobbits as they left home. He had this character in stock, so to speak, so he just grabbed Tom Bombadil and dropped him right into the manuscript.
He recycled his own assets.
Exactly. It was basically a cameo. Here's the funny guy from the poem I wrote for my kids. But as the writing progressed over the next decade, the story grew up.
It got dark.
It became The Lord of the Rings, the shadow grew, the magic ring from the Hobbit became the One Ring of Sauron. But Tom stayed exactly the same.
He really is a fossil.
He is a literary fossil. He is a remnant of the early Hobbit-style narrative, perfectly preserved in amber within the darker Lord of the Rings narrative. That is fundamentally why the tone clash exists. He is literally from a different genre of story.
That perfectly explains the why of his weirdness on a structural level. But it doesn't explain why Tolkien kept him in the final draft. Because Tolkien rewrote this book for 12 years.
Endlessly.
He obsessed over moon phases and travel distances. He was a perfectionist. He absolutely could have cut the Dutch doll character once the story got serious.
He absolutely could have. And his editors probably begged him to, but he didn't. And this is where we have to pivot from thinking Tom is a mistake to realizing Tom is a message.
Okay, let's get into the message.
Tolkien kept him because Tom's interaction with the ring proves something vital about the nature of evil in this universe.
And this is the part that always sparks those massive power level debates on internet forums. Could Tom Bombadil beat Sauron in a fight?
Right, I see those all the time, and that question fundamentally misunderstands the character. But let's look at the actual data from the text. In the house of Tom Bombadil, there is a scene that should legitimately stop your heart as a reader. Frodo hands Tom the ring.
Which Frodo never does. He struggles to even give it to Gandalf. He won't let anyone touch it, but he chins it over to Tom.
He hands it right over. Tom takes it, puts it on his pinky finger, and nothing happens.
No invisibility.
He does not vanish. Then Tom takes it off, spins it in the air, and makes the ring itself vanish.
He plays a cheap parlor trick with the supreme object of doom.
He flips it like a coin. Then he just makes it reappear and hands it back to Frodo. And here is the craziest part. While Frodo is wearing it, completely invisible to the rest of the world, Tom just looks at him and says, "Take it off, I can see you."
It's a complete violation of all the rules we've been taught up to that point. It suggests that Tom is somehow above the ring.
It suggests total immunity. And this directly leads to the Council of Elrond, where the smartest beings in Middle-earth actually debate this exact thing. Arestor, one of the elves, says, if he is immune, why not just give him the ring? He can keep it safe forever.
It seems like the perfect loophole. Sauron can't corrupt him, so just leave it in the old forest.
But Gandalf shuts this down hard. And I love his reasoning, because it's not about magical power at all, it's about care.
What does Gandalf say?
Gandalf says, and I'm paraphrasing a bit, but closely, he would not understand the need. And if he were given the ring, he would soon forget it or most likely throw it away.
That is such a devastating burn on the Dark Lord. I mean, Sauron poured his entire soul, his sheer malice into this object. It's the anchor of his existence. And Tom Bombadil would just misplace it.
Whoops, dropped it in the daffodils.
Exactly. It completely defangs the ring's majesty.
It really does. It shows that the ring's power completely relies on ambition. It relies on the wearer actually wanting something. Look at the others. Boromir wants victory for his people. Galadriel wants preservation of her realm. Even Gandalf wants order and to do good.
And the ring takes that desire and weaponizes it.
It hooks into that desire and twists it into tyranny. But Tom wants nothing.
He is entirely content.
He is the master of himself. He doesn't want to rule the trees, he just wants to know them. Because he has zero desire for control or dominion, the ring has absolutely no handle to grab him by. It just slides right off.
So he isn't more powerful than Sauron in like a Dragon Ball Z power level sense.
Yeah.
He just exists on a frequency that Sauron literally cannot touch.
Exactly. It's an orthogonal relationship. If Sauron regained his physical form and came to the Old Forest with his armies, he could probably burn it down and physically kill Tom, but he could never corrupt Tom. And that distinction matters immensely to Tolkien.
Okay, so philosophically, Tom represents a control group for the experiment of the ring. He shows us what a soul without a desire for power actually looks like.
That's a great way to put it.
But let's get to the hidden plot mechanics. Because you claimed earlier that he saves the entire quest, and I want to dig into that.
This is my favorite part. This is the butterfly effect of the Barrow Downs.
Set the scene for us. The hobbits leave Tom's house, they get lost in the fog, and they get captured by the Barrow-wights.
Right. And these wights are terrifying, ancient spirits inhabiting the burial mounds of long-dead kings. They capture the hobbits, paralyze them, and literally dress them in grave clothes. It is a terrifying near-death experience.
And Frodo uses a song to call for Tom.
Frodo calls for Tom. Tom comes bounding over the hills singing, easily banishes the wight, and breaks open the burial mound.
And inside the mound is a massive treasure hoard.
Piles of gold, rings, and jewelry. But Tom casts all the gold aside. He specifically tells the hobbits to take the daggers from the hoard. The text says, for each of the hobbits he chose a dagger, long, leaf-shaped, and keen work of westerness, wound about with spells for the bane of Mordor.
Wound about with spells for the bane of Mordor. That is incredibly specific terminology.
It is so specific. These aren't just sharp knives they found in a tomb. These blades were forged by the men of Westerness, the Dúnedain of the North, thousands of years ago.
During their specific wars against the Witch King of Angmar.
Exactly. They are ancient, magical tech weapons designed specifically to hurt Nazgul.
It's basically Chekhov's dagger.
Complete Chekhov's dagger. Now, fast forward. 3 massive books. We are at the end of The Return of the King. The Battle of Pelennor Fields is raging. The Witch King is systematically destroying everyone.
He lands on the field with his fell beast.
And Eowyn faces him. She is incredibly brave, but she is completely outmatched. The prophecy about the Witch King says, no living man may hinder me. He is effectively invincible because of this ancient magical protection he has.
And then Merry steps up.
Merry, who has been carrying this specific dagger from the Barrow Downs for the entire trilogy, creeps up behind the Witch King and he stabs him right in the back of the knee.
With the sword he got from the barrow.
With the sword he got purely because Tom Bombadil saved them and handed it to him. And the text in our source material really emphasizes this point, says that the strike from that specific blade broke the spell that knit the Witch King's unseen sinews to his will. The dagger didn't just hurt him physically, it broke the magical invulnerability itself. It stripped away his dark protection. It made him mortal again for just a split second. And the blade actually dissolves after the strike because it discharged all its ancient magic in that single blow.
So if Merry had just been carrying a regular Rohan sword,
it would have just shattered against him, or it wouldn't have broken the spell. Eowyn would have stabbed him in the face and he might have just laughed it off and killed her.
And if Eowyn dies there, the Witch King survives. The battle potentially turns entirely against Gondor.
Exactly. The chain of causality is undeniable here. Tom Bombadil rescues the hobbits. Tom gives them the specific anti-Nazgul tech. Merry carries it all the way to Gondor. Merry breaks the Witch King's shield. Eowyn delivers the fatal kill.
So the guy in the yellow boots, singing nonsense at the trees, is actually the supply officer who equips the heroes with the only weapon capable of turning the tide of the final battle.
He is the hidden architect of the Witch King's downfall, and he does it without ever leaving his forest or ceasing his singing.
That is genuinely incredible. It completely reframes the pointlessness of those early chapters. They aren't filler at all. They are the armory scene.
They are the armory scene, just heavily disguised as a musical number.
But despite that hidden importance, we do have to talk about the elephant in the room. Or the absence of the elephant. Peter Jackson cut him from the movies.
He did. Completely removed.
And honestly, listening to this and thinking about film structure, I can see why. Can you imagine stopping the driving momentum of the Fellowship of the Ring movie for 20 minutes of Tom Bombadil singing?
It would be an absolute nightmare for a film editor. Cinema is entirely about momentum. You have this terrifying chase. The Black Riders are right behind them, sniffing the air. To stop that urgency for a whimsical interlude in a yellow house would kill the tension dead.
Jackson made what the source calls a defensible narrative choice.
Defensible, yes. He streamlined the narrative to focus purely on the ring and the immediate danger.
He gave the swords to Aragorn instead, right?
Yeah.
In the movie, Aragorn just hands him some generic little swords at Weathertop.
Right. So the whole plot mechanic with the spells is just glossed over. The Witch King just gets stabbed by a normal sword in the movie, which works fine for the internal logic of the film.
Most viewers didn't even notice the absence.
They didn't. But our source makes a really compelling argument that by cutting Tom, the movie universe actually shrinks.
How so? Like, what is actually lost besides a few songs?
In the movies, everything is very binary. It's good versus evil. Everything relates directly to the War of the Ring. If a character or a creature exists in the films, they are either fighting for Sauron or they are fighting against him.
It's a total war economy. Everything serves the main plot.
Exactly. But in the books, Tom represents a third option. He represents the indifferent. He represents the natural world that just doesn't care about the politics of elves and dark lords.
He proves that Middle-earth is older, deeper, and stranger than just this one specific war.
Exactly. I love the term the source used for this. Deep time. Tom Bombadil makes you feel the sheer age of the world.
Right, because there are ancient powers, like Old Man Willow and the Barrow-wights, that have absolutely nothing to do with Sauron. They're just old and angry.
And Tom also serves as a vital transition figure. This is a really subtle literary point. The Shire is cozy and safe. The wild outside is terrifying. Tom is the bridge between those two realities.
He is safe, but he's also wild.
Yes, he acclimates the hobbits and the reader to the deep magic of the world before plunging them into the bleak horror of the ringwraiths. Without him, the movie jumps from a cozy birthday party to people getting stabbed in the dark very, very quickly.
You lose the texture. The world feels more like a constructed stage set for this specific war, rather than a massive, living, breathing universe.
Precisely, and this directly aligns with what Tolkien himself said. We have actual letters where he defends Tom to his readers. He wrote a famous letter to Naomi Mitchison in September of 1954, right when the books were being published, and people were scratching their heads asking, what is this?
What was his defense? Did he ever admit it was just a self-indulgent inclusion?
No, he doubled down entirely. He called Tom an intentional enigma. He said that in a mythical age, in a world as complex as Middle-earth, there absolutely must be enigmas. There must be things that are unexplained.
That goes so hard against the grain of modern fandom, doesn't it?
Oh, totally.
We have entire wikis for everything now. We want to know the midichlorian count of every Jedi. We want the hard magic system clearly explained with strict rules.
We are obsessed with categorization. We want the stat block for every creature. But Tolkien hated that approach to myth.
He felt that if you explained every single detail, you kill the magic.
He wanted the reader to feel like they were looking out at a distant horizon. You can see mountains way over there, but you don't know what's in them. You aren't supposed to know. Tom Bombadil is that distant mountain.
He's the reminder that we don't know everything. He's the anti-wiki philosophy.
He is. And honestly, it makes the world feel so much more real. In our actual real lives, we encounter things we don't understand all the time. We encounter weird pockets of history, strange coincidences, people who just don't fit the mold.
If Middle-earth had a clean, perfectly logical explanation for every single leaf and stone, it would feel artificial.
It would feel like a theme park. Tom makes it feel organic. He reminds the reader that Middle-earth existed long before Sauron, and it will keep existing long after he's gone.
So if we synthesize all of this deep dives together, we have a character born from a toilet-dunked Dutch doll.
Incredible start.
Who was imported from a children's poem, who intentionally breaks the rules of the magic system to prove a profound philosophical point about the nature of power and desire.
Right.
Who also secretly equips the heroes with the exact magical weapons they need to win the final battle, and who exists purely to remind us that mystery is essential to good storytelling.
That is the complete picture. Tom Bombadil is not a bug in the manuscript. He is a feature. He is the chaotic, joyful, ancient heart of Middle-earth that absolutely refuses to be drafted into anyone else's war.
I really have to say, my perspective has pivoted on this. I was a skipper, I freely admit it, but the next time I do a reread,
You have to read the songs. You can't skip them now.
I will read the songs. I will read every "Hey Doll, Mary Doll." I'll look for the depth in the nonsense.
And remember, when he's just casually juggling the One Ring in his parlor, he's showing you that true power is having absolutely nothing to lose.
That is a profound place to leave it. Think about the other unexplained mysteries in the stories you love, and ask yourself if explaining them would actually make the story better, or if it would just shrink the world.
Sometimes the mystery is the point.
For everyone listening, if you've been skipping chapter 6 and 7 all these years, go back. Pay your respects to the master of wood, water, and hill.
And keep an eye on those yellow boots.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you in the next one.